So in today's video, we're going to be covering a couple of orders, a couple of motions that are in the works, one of which was already decided upon by Judge Torres. So I'm going to tell you what was the one-word answer that she had for the SEC. I'm also going to tell you some upcoming dates that we have, including the 25th, which is today, and the 28th at the end of the month, what those deadlines mean, and what we can expect before and after. I also have some input from Jeremy Hogan on what one of these motions that the SEC has just submitted to the judge and why he thinks the judge is actually going to rule in favor of the SEC this time. And as the crypto markets continue to creep up, well, pretty much everything else is too. So I'm going to have a quick update on the markets and based on what is happening with Russia and the Ukraine, what some of the speculation is about what those markets are going to be moving forward. And I don't just mean from a numbers perspective, but actually the United States Federal Reserve. Hey everyone, my name is Randy and welcome back to the Late Night Grind. Right now on this channel we are covering the Ripple versus the SEC case, but I'm also covering cryptocurrency news, investment markets, and personal finance. So if any or all these topics interest you, make sure you hit that subscribe button and join the Late Night Grind community. And don't forget to hit that bell notification icon so that YouTube will send you a notification when I release a new video. And if you're feeling generous, go ahead and smash that thumbs up button and watch the video all the way to the end. Those are the two best things that you can do to support a YouTube channel. So if you do that, I greatly appreciate it. All right, guys, let's jump into it. So first thing I want to cover is what some of these markets are doing because it is now considered wartime in the global markets as Russia has officially invaded the Ukraine. There's all kinds of speculation as to what is going on and how long it will actually last. And nonetheless, some of the world markets are, as expected, going crazy. The Russian market tanked 50%. It's back up a little bit since then. And in fact, some large funds have actually been pulling out of the Taiwan index, which could signal something new about what the world is watching and what China is actually doing or considering doing with Taiwan. More on that in a later video. And in the US markets, everything is up. In fact, the Dow Jones is up big. The S&P is up, the NASDAQ is up, Bitcoin is up, and even the dollar was up, but it's since retreating, and gold hasn't recovered its losses from yesterday. It's pretty much been flat. And if you want to know what Bitcoin or the thought of Bitcoin is doing with global markets in various different countries, make sure to keep an eye out for a new video that I'm putting out, and in which I'm going to cover all of the new recent developments with Bitcoin in terms of which countries are looking to make it legal tender, which states in the United States are looking to make it legal tender, and what other markets are doing and talking about Bitcoin and the fact that they're starting to realize now that there's not much that they can do to actually control it. Now, this coming on to some of the speculation that Russia and China may potentially be working together to use some sort of cryptocurrency in order to transact and get around some of the sanctions that the United States, the UK, and some of NATO are actually looking to impose on Russia. So keep an eye out for that video. All right, so now let's get into the Ripple versus the SEC case because the last couple of days there have been some motions and some rulings that have been submitted to the judge, one of which was decided on. Now, this first one I'm going to talk about. This was the one that really, in many people's opinion, had no shot of standing a chance of being entered into the case. So what the SEC actually filed was basically another piece of evidence, or what they considered to be evidence, in support of them striking Ripple's fair notice defense. It was of another unrelated case in which there were some things that it was kind of a head scratcher as to why the SEC would actually be putting that case in. In that case, they didn't even attempt to strike that company's fair notice defense. They went after something else instead, but nonetheless, they tried to enter it. Well, Judge Torres had a ruling for that motion. It was a one-word answer. Denied. In fact, if you were on Twitter, you probably saw some of the memes going around about that one-word answer and how Judge Torres does not seem to be messing around. So nonetheless, they got denied on that. However, they just did submit another motion yesterday, and this one might actually stick, at least according to Jeremy Hogan. So this one revolves around the meeting that Brad Garlinghouse, the CEO of Ripple, and Elad Roisman had in 2018. These are known as the Easterbrook notes because General Counsel Easterbrook was actually in that meeting. He was the one taking the notes. The one thing that's kind of curious and kind of a head scratcher about this is that those notes were actually taken and then apparently shoved into a desk, and nobody saw those notes until January of 2022 when Elad Roisman decided to leave the SEC. Yes, they sat in there for 2 years and nobody remembered that meeting except apparently for Brad Garlinghouse because he told us exactly what went on in those meetings. So nonetheless, the SEC is fighting to keep those notes private, to keep them covered by the DPP, the deliberative process privilege. Now, the judge did order those notes to be turned over to her so she can specifically review them in private, but of course Ripple will not get to see them. So nonetheless, the SEC actually submitted their opposition to revealing these notes, and they laid it out in a three-part motion. Now, according to Jeremy Hogan in a tweet, he actually thinks that the SEC may win this one because he said point number 2 and number 3 were actually very compelling as to why actually those notes may remain sealed, may remain covered by the DPP, and why the judge may actually decide to go with the SEC on this one. Now, he did say, keep in mind that in the scope of this huge litigation, that they may win this battle, but it's probably a small battle in the scope of litigation. So what do we have coming up? Well, today is the 25th. This is actually the day that is a deadline for Ripple. They have until the end of business today to basically submit their opposition to what the SEC submitted, which is their motion for reconsideration that they submitted to Judge Netburn as to the speech of William Hinman, and the 63 emails surrounding that speech should actually be covered by the DPP, the deliberative process privilege. To which the SEC said, no, we don't agree with you, Judge. You need to reconsider this. And along with that, the SEC submitted a bunch of arguments. So Ripple's deadline is today to actually respond to the SEC's arguments. So today, the 25th, is the day that Ripple actually has to respond to those. So that'll be an interesting read once that comes out, because Ripple's defense usually does a very good job of laying things out as to why the SEC is wrong on things. Another date to keep in mind, February 28th, the end of the month, which is coming up quickly. That is the last day for expert discovery in this case. Finally, we've been expecting this since what, October? Well, it's finally coming to its conclusion. And someone on Twitter said, oh, don't worry, the SEC is going to put another delay in, and that the SEC is actually going to ask for another extension because of what is going on with Russia and the Ukraine. They're going to ask for an extension of 3 more years. So we have those dates coming up, and of course we have the volatility on the markets. And the one thing I forgot to mention that I wanted to talk about at the beginning of the video here was the fact that the Federal Reserve, the United States Federal Reserve, some of the speculation is that the U.S. Federal Reserve was going to raise rates. In fact, they're really starting to dial back their QE and plan on raising rates at some point in the spring or summer here. Well, some of the speculation has been, well, because of what's going on with Russia and the Ukraine right now and the volatility of the markets, that there might be some additional pressure on the Fed to not raise rates and throw another monkey wrench into what's already going on in the rest of the global markets, let alone the United States markets. So when we look at something like that, that could be a reason why some of these markets are actually rebounding and climbing the way that they are, specifically Bitcoin, the NASDAQ, and the Dow Jones. Those are some of the US markets, and typically when they talk about rate hikes, they don't do as well, and when they talk about no rate hikes, well, they continue to bounce and climb, which is exactly what's going on today. So if you want to follow along with any or all these stories, make sure you subscribe to the Late Night Grind. All you gotta do is click that subscribe button, and don't forget to hit the bell notification icon, because like I said, YouTube sends you notifications when I release a new video. Alright guys, thank you so much for watching all the way to the end of this video, for giving it a big thumbs up, and as always, I'll see you guys on the next video.